What's up guys, Patrick from B Squared. Today we're just going to do a quick commentary here while you guys watch some of my driving footage. Today I want to talk about racing. There's so many avenues you can take when you're getting involved in motorsports. You can go to autocross, drag, time attack, sprint racing, endurance racing. There's so many kinds of racing that you can do. There's so much that you can do with the car in terms of level of modification that you want to do for each of these disciplines. And it's like, yeah, I want the new, hot Michelin tire that's out. Or I want to go for this newest crazy cheater 200 treadwear tire thing. You can go as far as building a full-on race car, or do something in between, like putting some aero on the car, or doing some experimentation by buying some really expensive coilovers, or maybe some cheap coilovers just to try them out. Got turbos, superchargers, and with so many cars that are fun at the track, and autocross and track events starting to become more common, people are getting easier access to the hobby. It's becoming a little bit more affordable, and there's just so many ways that you can get exposure to each of these facets of motorsports. But today I wanted to talk a little bit about burnout, and no, not burnouts like, lighting up the rear tires. I'm talking about financial and mental burnout when it comes to motorsports. So here are 3 tips to avoid motorsports burnout. The first one, and these are in no particular order, is to avoid doing too much too quickly. So a lot of people tend to put modification on their car, especially when you just hopped onto a new platform. You're like, okay, I gotta do this, this, and this, and these are all the parts that all of the current owners of the car commonly get, so I'm just gonna get them to start off. And this is typically not our recommended idea, because what'll happen is you end up with a car that's totally different than what it was originally designed, and you've added a ton of variability to the thing that you're driving, and it's hard to get a baseline for your own skills versus everything that these modifications are doing for and against your driving. I'll say this now, and I've said this so many times in the past, but B Squared is not at all anti-modification. We're actually very pro-modification, and we have fun changing things on our cars and using data to validate their improvement on the car, or to show maybe what we added to the car isn't actually doing what we expect it to be doing, or what it's advertised to do. On top of that, adding a bunch of things to the car adds complexity, and with complexity comes with more frequent maintenance cycles for all the things that you've added. So, don't be afraid to modify your car, just have a clear understanding of what you expect to get out of these modifications, and don't do too much too quickly if your main goal is to learn how to drive, only because you want to reduce variability and rely on what the car is telling you in terms of driving feedback. The next thing is to set clear goals and expectations. In our Applied Motorsports Data Course, we're always talking about goal setting, and that's one of the core things that you have to do before and after going to the track, because if you're just mindlessly turning laps when you go to the track, your performance isn't really going to improve that much. Setting goals doesn't always have to be a lap time. People who set incredibly fast lap times probably have years of experience, and it doesn't just come out of nowhere. So when you're setting goals, it's actually encouraged to specify a maximum of 3 goals per session. This is what we're talking about in our Applied Motorsports Data Course. The idea is to focus your learning and don't get distracted by your poor performance in some other corner if it's irrelevant to your goals. Focus on the specific corners or the specific techniques that you want to learn, and then execute a fast lap by stringing all of these newly found skills together. When it comes to start setting a goal for your lap time, have it relative to the modifications that you have on your car and your experience level, and have references to other people with similar setups and experience levels so that you have a reasonable goal. This is so that you can actually be satisfied with attaining your goals, right? Just because some dude did a 125 at your local track with the exact same setup as you, they probably have a few years more of experience. So that doesn't mean you yourself have to set a 125. You should be comfortable setting a 134, and then a 131, and then a 127, if that's your experience level. There is no pressure to reach for somebody else's goal, especially if they're not even in the same competition space as you. Also remember that lap times are specific to the day, the temperature, the tire pressures that that person is comfortable with, because their settings might not be the same as what you're comfortable with. So there's so many variables to a lap time. Speaking of competition, if you are new to the competition space, there's no pressure to place yourself on the podium on your first track weekend or within your first season. Giving yourself really daunting goals is just going to hinder you, and you'll be disappointed very quickly. There are physical and chemical changes that happen in your brain when you know you're in a high pressure competition space, because your brain ends up going into like a fight or flight sort of mentality. And you may not be the exact same driver that you were when you were just going for HPD or lapping. So if you're new to the competition space, your goals are totally okay if they're just getting comfortable with being timed at an event or being timed against other people in your class. And before you know it, your next goal will be finishing the day not in last place, then your next goal will be finishing in at least 5th place, then your next goal will be standing on the podium, and you'll get there. It will come to you as long as you have the correct mindset. As you start to achieve these smaller, more consumable goals, you start to become more confident in your abilities, and it'll exponentially speed up your learning. With that said though, don't be afraid to challenge yourself and set some goals that you know you might not be able to attain right now, but with a little practice, you can attain. But remember, perfection is the enemy of good, so expecting perfection will only drain you down. Finally, take a step back and identify what about this whole car thing is bringing you joy versus what about it is going to bring you down. If you spend a little bit of time thinking about it, you might find ways that you can really enjoy the hobby, so you can pick and choose how to go about your day. Some people like the social aspect of it. They try to mingle and talk with people and have discussions about setup and cars and shop talk. But if that's not your thing, you can totally go about your day in solitude and just enjoy driving alone. Even if you're in the competition space, you can go to your competition run and come back into the pits and just relax. There's no pressure to be somebody in the community. There's no pressure to show anybody else up except for yourself. Allow yourself to be flexible. If you find after a few years of doing it alone, you can probably go and start meeting people and mingling around. Or if you've gotten really deep into the community at the beginning and you're finding some aspects of it are toxic or some people are toxic, you're totally in the right to just step back and remind yourself of why you are doing the hobby in the first place, right? The hobby is an escape from what are sometimes the harsh realities of life. So don't let this whole car thing just become another stressor to you. Take control of your environment. Don't hang out with people who are ultimately going to drain you. And just remember to remind yourself that this is supposed to be fun. There's also that wrenching and maintenance aspect of motorsports. And again, what brings you joy versus what's going to bring you down. You don't need to feel any pressure to build your own car or put something together or do your own work. You're not an invalid member of the car community just because you don't like to work in cars. You're not an invalid member of the motorsports community if you don't like to use data. People who wrench on cars have many reasons for doing so. Maybe it's relaxation, maybe they're curious about taking things apart and putting them back. Similarly with data, some people like to go into the numbers, they like to be analytical, they like to learn things about themselves, and sometimes that seat of the pants feeling can't really provide that same level of granularity. But it doesn't take away from any of the enjoyment of being a car person by doing or not doing any of these things. You're also in no position to discredit anybody who doesn't like to wrench or doesn't like to look at data because they're enjoying this car hobby in the exact way that they want to. Allow people to consume cars and have fun, and you should do that on your own as well. Thank you guys for watching the video. If you guys are curious about learning more about yourself, ways you can leverage data to save money, make better use of your track time, make better use of all the modifications you've had on the car, maybe learning tracks a little bit quicker, check out our Applied Motorsports Data Course. The link is in the bio, or you can go to b-squared.io and take a look at our webinar that we have on the website. It's a free webinar, you guys can just check it out. And we're giving people just a quick rundown of the ways that they can stop wasting time and stop wasting money when they're going to the track, using data to empower them. Check it out, guys. The link is in the description. Thank you for watching.